Thank you very much for responding to our media briefing. We thought that it is always important to keep the media informed and give you an opportunity to ask us questions where there's lack of clarity on issues. Actually, yesterday's experience told us that to hold an NEC over 3 days is a luxury. You can take far-reaching decision within a very reasonable space of time. We did that in 1 day, but we discussed a number of issues and took serious decisions. But in the ANC, there's a belief that 3 days is not enough. We should have an NEC over 7 days, so that if a member of the NEC stands up and says something, somebody must be able to stand up and say, I disagree with you, and we have a discussion and settle that matter. The National Executive Committee of the ANC met at an ordinary scheduled meeting on 16 May 2015 at St. George Hotel, Irene Tshwane. 3 reports were discussed: the Polkal overview, the National Working Committee report, the election workshop report. The NEC was sitting a few days after the passing on of ANC stalwart and Istwaland West Aparangwe, Mama Ruth Khumuts Mampati. The NEC observed a moment of silence in her honor, and Mama Mampati was once again acknowledged by the ANC as an outstanding patriot and selfless servant of the people. She played a significant role in the 1956 Women's March and was one of the very first combatants to be recruited and trained by Umkhonto Wesizwe during its formative years. Comrade Ruth Mampati dedicated her life to the struggle and sacrificed her freedom for the freedom of others. As we bid farewell to this stalwart of our movement, we do so prepared to draw lessons from her exemplary life and commit to consistently revive within ourselves the timeless revolutionary traditions and values that defined her life. Now, on the state of the organization, both the Polkal report and the NWC report considered the state of the organization and made a call to strengthen ANC branches to be at the core of the work of all ANC structures. ANC branches must lead communities in their struggles through, among other things, implementing our campaigns of Imvuselelo and Freedom Charter forums. Imvuselelo campaign is a component in it of Know Your Neighborhood, that you cannot have a branch of the ANC that does not understand its neighborhood. Every branch of the ANC is in a ward, and therefore it is imperative for the ANC branch to know that ward. The unity of the ANC and the movement as a whole is paramount, and the ANC cannot continue to tolerate ill discipline at any level, and all our members must shun divisive practices. Disunity within the ranks of the ANC stalls and reverses progress that we must make to fulfill the program of fundamental socio-economic transformation. On the ANC leagues and SASCO, the NEC noted the preparations underway for the conferences of the ANC Women's League, the ANC Youth League, and the ANC Veterans League. The challenges facing the student movement were also discussed. The NEC was of the view that there is a need to support the Progressive Youth Alliance. PYA operates in institutions of higher learning. It's an alliance of SASCO, the Youth League, and the YCL, and reaffirm its hegemony at the country's institutions of higher learning. Doing this must involve acknowledging and confronting weaknesses within the organizations themselves, as well as ensuring that progressive student leaders are rooted among their constituencies. The poor performance of SASCO in a number of campuses was discussed in detail. It was agreed that the ANC Youth League's contestation for leadership of SRC should be strongly discouraged. So every time SASCO and the Youth League contest in the same campus, they divide the same constituents, and therefore weaken the performance of both. And every member of the ANC Youth League must be, ideally, a member of SASCO in every campus. And this is one of the issues that must be discussed in the coming National Congress of the ANC Youth League. SASCO must be assisted to know that student politics are about the day-to-day issues for students, not the universal political concepts. Being rooted among students is critical for the strengthening of SASCO. There must be a program that is ongoing and not only focusing on SRC elections. The assumption of autonomy of SASCO leaders once elected to SRC and thus remove themselves from the organizational discipline must receive urgent attention from SASCO structures. The involvement of students in the adjudication of tenders is having a corrupting effect on students. The task team leading the work of the ANC Youth League was directed to convene a meeting of the PYA urgently to discuss all these issues. I think it is also important to clarify that SASCO is not a student body of the ANC. It's not like the ANC Youth League. It is a progressive student movement which is within the Congress movement. That's why it is the South African Student Congress. And therefore our relationship with them is not as direct as the relation we have with the Youth League. But we have an interest in a SASCO that is strong, that is promoting Congress politics, that is raising the consciousness of students. I think it is important to clarify that because it is not a direct league of the ANC. The unity of COSATU, the NEC reflected on the developments in COSATU and once again reaffirmed the view that a strong COSATU is in the interest of the ANC, the alliance and the broader society, and every effort must be made to assist COSATU manage its current difficulties and ensure that all unions remain part of the structures of the Federation. In June, the Alliance Summit will be convened in line with the call made by President Jacob Zuma. The summit will do introspection and self-criticism to confront the challenges facing the alliance. We welcome the recent out-of-court settlement that confirms the decision of the Federation to hold the special National Congress in July. We're making this point to clarify this thing of when comrades agree to have an out-of-court settlement, then what comes out of the media is a victory for a particular section of the Federation. When there is no victory, there is agreement that, listen, COSATU has decided to have the Special Congress in July and therefore want to make that a court settlement. That is normal in life. It is not a victory of anybody. It is an agreement among the contending parties that will have that conference announced. That's why in the ruling itself, the applicant parties are given a leeway to say if it is not implemented as agreed, then they can again approach the court. The local government and 2016 local government elections, the NEC received a report on the election workshop held on the 8th and 9th May 2015. Guidelines of the selection of candidates for 2016 general elections were discussed and adopted. Now we have the clear guidelines on selection of candidates. The NEC focused on the key principles which must guide the candidate selection, read together with the ANC position on leadership selection through the eye of the needle. That the best possible candidates must be selected, that all relevant stakeholders and communities must be consulted, there must be a correct mixture of representativity and skill set required to drive the program of the development state and local level. The NEC has directed that government focus must be on the acceleration of service delivery in our community as part of final push towards the end of the current term of local government. Back to basics approach remains the center of our work, at the center of our work. Putting our people first, delivering basic services, good governance, sound financial management, and building capable institutions. On the African unity and progressive internationalism, the NEC received a detailed report from the President and the NWC on the recent horrific spate of violence targeted at immigrants from other parts of Africa and government intervention in this regard. The NEC commended government for the bold and swift action that resulted in the restoration of calm in all communities that were affected. The NEC further appreciated successful recording by Operation Fiela to date, specifically the strides being made to discover and disarm those in society with illegal and unlicensed firearms. We're making this point because we've noticed in some programs of some broadcasting houses the emphasis on Operation Fiela as harassment of foreign nationals. The reality of that operation is that it is aiming to discover and disarm everybody in our society, foreign and national, with illegal and unlicensed firearms. And that the operation has also brought to the fore immigrants who are in the country illegally and should not be used to discredit the operation, but rather but as contributing to our efforts to regularize and document all people in South Africa. So it's not a question of harassing foreign nationals. It's a question of ensuring that our space is occupied by people that we know who they are, where they are, and that's it. It is not harassment. Immigration is a global phenomenon, and while we remain committed to the integration of immigrants into our communities, we must welcome any effort to further tighten the implementation of our immigration laws. We must further engage neighboring countries, many of which do not allow dual citizenship in their countries, however expected in South Africa. The ANC government has the responsibility to protect and promote human rights of the people in the country. The NEC was unanimous on the view that South Africans are not inherently xenophobic. We must shun every attempt that seeks to suggest South Africa is separate from Africa. Sometimes loose talk of Africa as if it's another continent. We are part of the African continent. We are Africans. We are in this part of the continent. And we must earnestly discuss the real possibility that material conditions of our people are giving rise to these attacks, as the attacks were most prevalent in areas where poverty and unemployment are high. We have not seen any attacks in affluent areas. And that gives the character of the conflict. The NEC then concluded that these attacks are a scramble for scarce resources in the main. And the problem can be addressed and resolved if the socio-economic challenges can be attended to. And the pace of socio-economic transformation will determine the pace of solving poverty and unemployment-related conflict. Engagement with the intention of finding a lasting solution to these matters must continue. As South Africans, we must move beyond xenophobic narrative and look forward to strengthening relationships across the continent, pretty much on the African Union Vision 2013. Sometimes we stick to the negative forever, and our view is that we should move beyond that and begin to be forward-looking, and it is only in a positive message that we will be able to educate our people to understand the importance of people-to-people relations and our being part of the continent. The leadership of the ANC must be visible in community to explain the programs of government. The tendency of destroying public property to register unhappiness points to the need to intensive education for communities as the assets belong to them in reality. If you are in a community, you want to register unhappiness, you ban a clinic because you want a school, or you ban a library because you want a road. It means people have not internalized that that library is not a government library. No government reads in that library. It is the community that uses that library. If you destroy a school, that school belongs to that community, not to government. and so on and so on. But what is important is that we should work together to educate our people that properties in their communities actually belongs to them. It is government property only because it was built by government for them. The regional integration, intertrade, and industrialization should be accelerated as part of finding a long-term solution and strengthening democracy and peace on the continent. South Africa remains a beacon of hope to many of our African compatriots. There is a direct link between political instability and influx of immigrants in our country. Hence, the NEC is concerned about the recent developments in the Great Lakes. Our view is that with the developments in Burundi, we are going to see another wave of immigrants to South Africa. And the developments in Burundi point to the need for the continent to deal with the temptation of leaders who want to stay in power beyond prescribed constitutional limits. South Africa has the responsibility and the honor of hosting the AU summit in June. There is a great expectation from Africa of the resolution that will come from this summit. It is the wish of the NEC that much attention is given to how we collectively strengthen peace and security in the continent. It is our hope that the summit will also be preoccupied with finding African solutions to African problems, particularly supporting South Sudan, the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Central African Republic. On 22nd June to 5th July, the African National Congress will be hosting the Cuban Five, who were recently released from the United States jail after years of incarceration. The NEC expressed its appreciation of the promising sign of normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba. This is a victory we believe must be claimed by the Cuban people and the progressive internationalist movement. We must continue to call for the lifting of illegal blockade on Cuba. The visit of the Cuban Five is in recognition of solidarity and strong bonds of friendship between South Africa and Cuba. The national officials of the ANC will be visiting Nelson Mandela tomorrow, Monday, 18 May 2015, and at eThekwini region in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, on Tuesday, 19 May 2015. Thank you very much. I hand over to Zizi Kodwa, my boss.
Thank you very much, Samson Kwede. May we take any questions, Hajra?
Hajra Marji, Power FM. I found it strange that there's nothing in the statement about Eskom. Was it discussed? Was the power crisis discussed? When Brian Molefe came into office on his first day, he said that his job was to eliminate load shedding. Is there a plan in order to do that? And did load shedding get discussed in terms of the ANC's election workshop, or did anyone raise concern about the impact of load shedding on the 2016 local government elections? SG, in terms of internal democracy in the ANC, what is the challenges that especially the ANC Women's League and eThekwini region are having in convening and concluding their conferences? I think we understand the Youth League. And then finally, on your statement on xenophobia, you acknowledge the scramble for scarce resources. I think it's one of the first times, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that the ANC as well as government are leaving out the word criminality in terms of the xenophobic violence. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. Thanks.
Thank you, Hajra. Just to your left, Natasha.
Hi, it's Natasha from the Business Day. Just a quick question on local government guidelines, the guidelines for the selection of candidates. I just wanted to know whether this time around, SG, there will be a repeat of what happened the last time where we selected candidates and then presented them to the communities. I recall that there were some issues with that. Will that process be repeated again? And can you shed some light on the discussions around Nelson Mandela Bay? There's been a lot of speculation in the media, which I'm sure you don't want to comment on. But can you tell me where that process is at? And is there going to be a a political or administrative change in that municipality when you go there tomorrow? Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Right in front, Ranjani.
Thank you, Zizi. SG, on the issue of Operation Fiala, you say you've received a report from the from the Interministerial Committee. Was there any concern expressed by members of the NEC about the method in which the operation is being conducted and the alarm bells being raised, particularly by NGOs and the like, about the perceived harassment? Sorry?
NGOs.
NGOs and civil society organizations, as well as foreign national bodies, especially with concerns that some of the foreign nationals do have papers. They are not necessarily illegal, but they are being picked up and taken to police stations in the middle of the night. So I'm just asking if there was any concern expressed about people's human rights being violated in the midst of this operation. And secondly, did the President at all share with the NEC anything about the Marikana report, which he received in the end of March? And did the ANC express itself in any way on that report? And thirdly, I just want to find out if the the President also shared any thoughts about when he will be replacing the deceased cabinet minister. Thank you.
That's a smart way to ask if there will be any reshuffle. You're just running away from there. Thanks very much, SG. I think those are the questions in this round. I now invite Samson Kwede to the podium.
I normally apologize to journalists that writing is not my best skill. My best skill is drilling rocks as a mine worker. So if you want me to write quick, you are putting up a big challenge for me. Let me explain our attitude to ESCOM. That debate is ongoing. So we don't treat it every time we meet as the NEC as a new item. And we don't have a simplistic view on how load shedding can be eliminated, that there will be prime relief and then it will come with a magic of eliminating load shedding. We don't have that view in the ANC. Our view is we understand that load shedding is a function of demand exceeding supply. So solution cannot be instant. There will be part of increasing the connected electricity supply. If you don't address that, you cannot have some magic of eliminating load shedding. And hence, we always emphasize the fact that what is important in ESCOM today is to accelerate the build program. Commission Mitupi, Commission Kusile, Commission Ngula, improve the program for servicing of power stations. What the new team can succeed in doing in the short term is improving the servicing program of existing power stations. Otherwise, the load shedding will be a feature of electricity supply for some years now until we correct the question of electricity supply. We're not simplistic about it. Whether it will impact on the local government elections, it should not be a matter for speculation. Our duty is not to run away from realities of life because there are local government elections. It's to focus on getting solutions to real problems. And our view is that if we explain to people that this is a problem that is linked to increased demand for electricity, we have been repeating this, and we want to repeat every time you ask this question, that the fact that we have connected additional 7 million households to the grid, on top of 5 million that were connected by various regimes before 1994 over a period of close to 100 years, in itself is positive. And the fact that the economy continues growing and the pace of building the supply side of the electricity is a factor that we should look into. We always owned up to the fact that the build program was started later than it should have been. That's it. So we are not going to get instant solution to that issue now. That we're owning up. And I think it is a correct thing for us to own up, rather than manufacturing responses that want to appease the electorate. Instead, we should own up and explain to the electorate, here is a problem. We have more demand than supply. We can only correct the situation by improving the supply side of electricity supply system. The internal democracy in the ANC, I wouldn't categorize the issues confronting the Women's League and the eThekwini as weaknesses of internal democracy. I would actually describe them as the opposite of that. That there is internal democracy in the ANC. We go to elections, and our system is different to any other party. We are a movement, big movement. The Women's League is going to its Congress. It has been forced by its own constitution and by practice that you can't run to a conference until you do the basic things right. Allow your branches to go to BGMs, allow your regions to go to regional conferences, allow your province to go to PGCs, then go to a national conference of the Women's League. That is what is the issue. If there are problems in that process, correct those problems in the process first before you rush for a national conference of the Women's League. So, I wouldn't therefore say it's a problem of internal democracy. I would say it is too much of internal democracy. Yes, that's what it is, Ranjeni. That's what it is. Because we are constantly ensuring that nobody is deprived the right to be part of a conference of the ANC structure when entitled to do so. And therefore, if it means delaying the national conference by a week or two, so be it. But those who have a right to be in that conference must be in that conference. On eThekwini, we are dealing with eThekwini. Again, in eThekwini, it was a question of enforcing rules. Again, because we said you cannot argue politically to deal with a question of the requirement to comply with the provisions of the Constitution of delegates to a conference must come from a corating BGM. A corating BGM is a BGM that is 50% plus one of members in good standing in any branch. So you can't undercut that. So again, we are enforcing rules of the ANC. We say we must not have a political discussion substituting the rules of the ANC. Discipline can only be talked about in a rule-based institution. That's what we are dealing with in eThekwini. And I think we'll hold the conference of eThekwini, but it will be a proper conference. You say criminality is missing in our discussion for xenophobia for the first time. No, it's not missing for the first time. If you look into our statement, you will notice that we have reached this point that we say we should be more forward-looking rather than doing an analysis of the xenophobic attacks. That's why you say the criminality disappears. Is that criminality creeps in when there's a problem. You know, criminals are very entrepreneurial. You know, if there is a conflict, criminals walk in there and exploit that situation for their own benefit. That's why you'll have anger that is directed to shops of foreign nationals. But at the end of the day, it will not be chasing away of those nationals. It will be looting. Once you begin to see that looting, it is the criminal element that walks in and exploit a situation that is volatile. But our view is that we must begin to be more forward-looking and actually be more educational, link our work to the Vision 2063 of the AU. And that's what we're saying. And in that way, we are not going to travel that journey forward by keeping our eyes on the mirror. Because if we keep our eyes on the mirror and we're moving forward, we're going to smash the track. So that's why you say criminality disappears, that we must look forward and actually educate society of South Africa being an integral part of this continent. And therefore begin to educate people to that direction. And I think if you have listened to the speeches recently, you'll see all of them are moving to that direction. I was impressed by the king of Amaxhosa during coronation, when he actually spent a lot of time on this matter and explained the fact that we must coexist, we must live together, we must love each other, we must move forward. And I think that is the route we should be taking, and we think that the media can help us in educating society in that regard. And that's why we're emphasizing the fact that, look, xenophobia or poverty, why is there no xenophobia in affluent areas? Is this a scramble of scarce resources? We're hoping that the media will facilitate that debate so that it becomes a more detailed debate. And that takes me to, and I want to link Operation Fiela to that. I'm not sure if managing a complex situation should only be dictated to by views of NGOs and foreign national organizations. Ironically, the government has met Organization of Foreign Nationals, and there are areas where there are serious disagreements. There are serious agreements among themselves. The question of that body of foreign nationals, the various bodies, have a responsibility to ensure that activities that are deviant among themselves should be eliminated, because that creates problem for everybody. NGOs should not only be narrow in defining human rights. If, for example, in the Operation Fiela, there is disarming and removal of illegal firearms in communities, I don't know how can foreign human rights organization be opposed to that. Because once you have those illegal firearms in that community, human rights of people are going to be contravened very soon thereafter. And therefore, safety in society cannot be in contradiction to human rights, not unless somebody will educate me that human rights are supreme. People can shoot others left, right, and center as long as they are free and move freely in society. They have their human rights right, but killing others is not a big deal. That approach to me would be a very narrow approach. That human rights of every individual includes the safety of every individual in society. So Operation Fiela is must work very close with human rights formations in society, if it is right. But if it is contradicted and say, don't do that, don't touch anybody, then there's something wrong. I think our society is suffering from extremism. Once it suffers from extremism, it will, when we're having a debate on sustainable development, there was a big debate about protection of environment and development. And the reason that it was defined as benefiting now without destroying benefits to future generations, it was acceptance of the fact that there should be development, but it must be done in a particular way that doesn't tamper with benefit that will accrue to future generations. And I think the question of enforcing safety in society and human rights should be balanced. You can't say the state must do nothing. It must allow illegal immigrants. It must allow undocumented people in society. It must leave unlicensed firearms in society. Otherwise, if you touch those things, you are tampering with human rights, and I think that is an extreme position. And impact here on society will actually destroy the very human rights in the long term. Selection of candidates will still go to communities. It's a policy position of the ANC that will test our candidates in communities. We'll do that this year. That's why we're releasing our guidelines early enough for us to have that exercise done properly. Last time it was the first time we're experimenting. We learned from some mistakes that were committed in the process, and we're trying to close the loopholes. But still, candidates must be tested in society. Society must have the right to say, but your candidate here is not acceptable to this community, and we must stop and think and say, hey, are we putting up a right candidate? People would have noticed in a number of by-elections that when committee objected to particular candidates, we changed them. So that experience is informing the guidelines, because you say, I remember in Witzenberg, we selected this candidate who was very popular and discovers in the process that this man raped a minor in community. And we say, that can't be an ANC candidate. We removed him. So we'll still take our candidates to communities. Nelson Mandela, we're going to Nelson Mandela tomorrow. I can't report today on what will happen tomorrow. So let's leave that, because we're going there tomorrow, and not try to preempt that. We didn't discuss the Marikana report. The president didn't report on that, and I don't think the president should take a report that is out of a commission to the NEC of the ANC. When he releases that report, he must release it to society. And I think the president has committed itself to release that report to society. But again, one of the weaknesses in South Africa is that once there's that commitment, it must be released now. We can't help that. So we're waiting for that report. We're patient. We're not going to protest about it. When it is released, we'll read it, we'll comment on it, we'll engage with it. And I think what we should be appealing to society for is that the commission has done its work over 3 years, the report is released, and the president at an appropriate time will release it to society, not to the NEC of the ANC. We have not discussed a replacement of any cabinet minister, okay? It is not ideal to discuss those things in the NEC. You have just forgotten that appointment of cabinet ministers, reshuffles are not discussed in the NEC, because you will create confusion in society if you say people who may be candidates to some of this position are part of discussing them. We don't do that in the ANC. That is one of the issues that is left to the president. Consult quietly with allies and other people, but it is not a subject of the NEC to appoint cabinet members for obvious reasons. Otherwise, every member of the NEC who is a parliamentarian will have to recuse himself, and there will be no quorum in the NEC.
Thank you very much, SG. No,
I've said that. I talked about,
you were not listening.
he was talking about
Where's my Yes, there's a mic just behind you, sir.
Yes, Greg Nicholson from the Daily Maverick again. So, SG, on Operation Fiala, you said it's a matter of enforcing safety, and you balanced enforcing safety versus human rights concerns. Was there any discussion in the NEC whether the SANDF is still best placed to assist the police in enforcing this safety? And second question, on SASCO, can you elaborate on some of the issues with the SASCO discussion? Because it seems like there are major concerns, particularly among certain SASCO leaders.
Was there any consent? You say on SASCO, was there any consent about?
No, it seems like there were major concerns with some SASCO leaders. Can you elaborate just on that discussion about SASCO and BYA?
It's in the statement. The decline in the number of campuses we lost is in the statement.
Was there a specific discussion on Forte? Can you elaborate on that?
Okay,
SASCO has lost 4 campuses. It has not lost.
just for 10.
It has lost 4 campuses. That's why we have a broad discussion on it.
Okay,
I know that people are interested in Forte and think that SASCO has always controlled Forte, and it's not the fact. SASCO has been running the SRC in Forte for one term. Before that, there was a series of SRCs that were run by independents in Forte. That's why we don't understand the handball around Forte. So we talk of Forte. We talk of SASCO in campus. They have lost 4.
Thank you. Lebogang from Independent. On your visit to Nelson Mandela Bay, I understand that you saying you don't want to preempt that, your visit, but tell us, what are you going to do there? Secondly, I've noted your concerns and statements around the ANC Women's League and the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. But I just want to put it to you, SG, that
Put it to me, we talk like a lawyer now.
that the ANC structures generally appear to be in disarray, almost completely in disarray. I'm talking about the Women's League, the ANC Youth League, and even the ANC itself. Would you deny, if I put it to you again, that this is in a way a reflection of the instability in the ANC-led government itself, as underpinned by most of the state institutions? I can go on your NPA, your ESCOM, all of this, and the perceptions of growing self-interest and careerism among ANC members themselves. That culture of a true cadre has faded, and people are growing increasingly unhappy. And this is reflecting itself in the ANC structures that are in disarray. Thank you.
thanks for giving us a scope for tomorrow. We can tell already what is your headline for tomorrow. Let's just take this last round of questions. I think he was making his comment. No, just before, let's take this last round, SG. Natasha, Hajra, and then you the last.
Sorry, it's just a question of clarity on ESCOM. I was reminded by your response. On ESCOM, so can you please clarify the position of the ANC on privatization of ESCOM, on the sale of assets, of ESCOM's assets? And I think what Lebogang is trying to ask as well is, can you...
You're from the business day.
I understand, but that was my question as well.
Ask your own question.
Yes.
What is the health of the ANC? You received an organizational report, I think, if I heard correctly. Can you diagnose the health of the ANC ahead of the next election? Thank you.
Good. Hajra?
SG, to pick up on Ranjani's question, I don't understand why the President of the Republic didn't take the ANC NEC into his confidence on the Marikana report, since we are a party system. And secondly, did the President of the ANC take the NEC into his confidence on negotiated settlements with the likes of the head of the NPA, the deputy head of SARS, the head of the Hawks, as well as the head of the police, because massive payments are allegedly being made or offered to these people to walk away, and I don't understand the party not discussing it.
Yes, Raja?
SG, sorry, just I missed the Marikana reply because it was one sentence. But just to, since you are gonna, okay, but can I explain what I'm asking?
You get my point?
Yes.
You are not listening.
No, but I hear.
I wouldn't wait for you.
But can I ask my question, please?
Ask your question. Don't put the preamble because you are ill-disciplined. You are not listening. You are ill-disciplined. Ask your question.
Okay. On the Marikana report, if there are major implications for the ANC government from that report, how would the ANC then process it after it is publicly released? Surely it has an impact on, for example, your deployment policy, your monitoring, your oversight over what goes on in the state. That's why I'm asking you. I don't know if it was because the NEC was short, and that's why you were saying you need 7 days to discuss it, so that you would have more time to discuss it, or is it just not?
Ask your question, Ranjani. Don't talk for the ANC.
And its agenda.
Not a member of the NEC. Please ask your
I'm
question.
trying to understand how
Ask your
these things.
question.
I'm trying to understand how these issues come up in the NEC. Does somebody have to suggest it for it to be on the agenda, or does the National Working Committee, when it sets the agenda, it doesn't believe that this issue should be discussed in the NEC? I'm trying to understand the process. Thank you.
Zikona
Shona from ANC.
ANC. Yes, just on the visits to the Nelson Mandela Bay and eThekwini region, what did you discuss as the core reasons that are informing your decision to visit these two places, and also what Lebohang asked about what will you be doing there?
Okay, that was the last round of questions, SG.
Let me first of all clarify myself. One of the things that is irritating is when journalists want to be specialists on the ANC more than us, who are running the operations. That is irritating, because you are a specialist by default. You don't understand the ANC in detail, but you want to be a specialist. If you want to be a specialist of the ANC, please study it and be involved if you want to be involved, please. It is better when a journalist asks questions, and then we'll explain them. So, Ranjani, I'm appealing to you today and in future. Don't pretend to be a specialist on the ANC, because you are not. Okay? Yes, Savannah Glenda, you are not a specialist on the ANC. Don't pretend to be an insider of the ANC. You are not. You are a journalist. If you want to be an insider, don't be a journalist, be an insider. On the Operation Fiela and the appropriateness of the SANDF in the work of the police, you know, the security cluster has a responsibility of safety of the country and society. And when in the analysis of the security cluster, I think that the police must be backed up by the SANDF, we should allow that decision to be taken in the operations. What we should be discussing now, I don't think is whether the SANDF is there or the police is not there, is this thing of liberal description of human rights, that it is don't touch anything. If you touch anything, it's human right. It's the violation of human rights. There is security of the country and the security of individuals in society. And when you see violent conflict in society, you must appreciate that the country has a responsibility to protect everybody in society and not just say, human rights say you do not protect others, allow people to do things as they wish in a country. And therefore, Operation Fiela, in our view, should be seen as an attempt to rid the country of the illegal component and the undocumented component of immigrants in South Africa. And in that way, it is also talking to the safety of our country. You see, let me give you just one example. I will leave the 10 out of 11 illegal firearms that were got in Doornkop. I will take you to the question of threat posed by just allowing everybody to move freely in society. 2 young kids have been stopped being sent to join ISIS, for example. That tells you the dangers in society of where everybody is just moving freely. We have a duty to make our country safer for everybody. That is part of human rights. One of the rights that human beings in South Africa have is to have security and safety. That is a right. And therefore, Operation Fiela is doing that, and we must support it to do that. And then we have proper management of immigration. There was a question that was asked in the NEC when we said we are integrating foreign nationals in communities. There was a question that was asked there. It was actually quite important. They said, we talk of integration, how do we integrate? It became clear that that integration is not a managed integration. It's a free movement. I come to South Africa, I have a friend in Hillbrow, and I just go and join him. And another one come and join there. And you find that there will be areas that are no-go areas in society. That taken over, then we have a mini states within a state. And we say that cannot be the right direction to take for South Africa. And we must support Operation Fiela because it is the right thing to do. Lebohang puts to me that ANC structures are in disarray. Because you are telling me, you are putting to me, maybe let's say thank you for the information and leave you. Yeah? And leave him.
He has written an article, a long article about it. I responded to him.
No, actually, when a journalist writes about the ANC in those terms, he has not been to a branch of the ANC. That worries the hell out of me. Okay. So structures are generally in disarray. And you are making an observation that is not based on you being there physically, because there is a problem in eThekwini. Therefore, you extrapolate the situation in eThekwini to the rest of the ANC. And I think that is what I call mischievous journalism. Very malicious, Lebohang. Very malicious. Actually, you are airing your desire as fact. You wish to see structure of the ANC in disarray, and you are stating it as a fact. You have not been to any structure of the ANC. I have not seen you when I visit regions and branches of the ANC. And I do a lot of that. In any way, we are busy with the state of the organization report for the NGC. It will be open to public scrutiny. You will get that. We'll tell you in detail the state of the organization of the ANC. And one thing that we have earned is that we don't hide our problems. We'll tell you that there's this problem in this area, there's this problem in this area, but we'll give you the rest of what is happening in the ANC that you don't take note of because you are looking for faults. When you look for faults,